And joining us now from Ramallah in the West Bank is former British Prime Minister Tony Blair. He is now the Middle East envoy for the Quartet Group, representing the U.S., UN, Russia, and the European Union. Mr. Prime Minister, good to have you with us. Israel has made the argument here that this is actually not the best time to take a look at the peace process. How, though, could President Obama convince the two parties that this is actually an opportune moment?
I think by trying to lay out a clear framework as to how we move this forward. I mean, look, the region at the moment is in a huge amount of turmoil. I think the president today will lay out a plan to back reformers, to have a process of steady evolution rather than revolution in the area. And secondly, he'll want to give economic support to those countries undergoing a massive process of change. Now, the Israel-Palestine issue fits absolutely into the changing nature of the region. And right at this moment, yes, it may be difficult to come to a peace deal, but I still think it's important we give some direction to this process, and I think he'll try to do that.
I want to move now to the rest of the region, because there's been so much focus on this Arab Spring, much of it actually brought about by young people who wanted a job and by the economic situation in many countries, which people in really around the globe can relate to. Moving forward, how important is this economic incentive that the president will lay out in terms of perhaps winning some support in those nations?
It's hugely important. I mean, we all support the process of reform and democratization, but unless it's accompanied by action on the economy, the danger is people become disillusioned very quickly. So if you take a country like Egypt, it's true there's now a great process of political reform. It's also true that growth has slowed dramatically, that the tourist industry obviously is now experiencing huge difficulties. So for the president to lay out an economic plan for the region, I think, is absolutely essential. These countries need help because the right to vote is important, so is the ability to get a job, so is rising prosperity, so are things like freedom of expression and freedom of religion. So it's more than just a process whereby people vote in their government. If you don't put the economic and the social aspects alongside it, then obviously there's a danger disillusion sets in, and then more extreme elements can exploit the situation.
I do want to quickly touch on Syria before we let you go. Obviously, sanctions put in place. But at this point, in Syria, how much influence can any country have, do you believe, based on the regime that is currently in place?
Well, it's really difficult because, I mean, what again has to happen? Possibly really this is the right way to look at the whole region. What has to happen is that you need a plan for evolution so that countries move slowly but steadily and surely towards a situation where people have greater freedom, the chance to elect their governments and so on. Because the problem with revolutions is never where they begin but where they end. However, if you don't have that process of evolution in place, and in Syria at the moment it's hard to see that happening, then people say, well, our only alternative is to rise up because we don't have the chance of that evolution towards a more representative, more democratic system. So this is why it's very difficult to influence from the outside. But I think, again, in the light of the changes happening in the region, the president will want to give some guidance as to how he thinks the situation should change.
Former Prime Minister Tony Blair, thanks for joining us this morning, sir.